Hello world, I'm Max. Welcome to another episode of the State Copy Podcast. As always, I'll remind you that this content is meant to be consumed in series from the beginning. See episode 0 and each segment appended for all applicable terms and disclosures. Appended segments can be identified by their title prefix, scp.0. Thank you.
Hey, it's another beautiful day. Good morning. I am feeling good today. Sleep was good. No THC. Looking forward to Friday. The fast is over. Welcome back, creativity. Let's see. Or I should say it will be back. Tranquility 9-7. What do I want to talk about today? Probably two things. So tried a bit of experimentation with these gated communities of NFT. I'm in a couple of the prodigious, is that the word? No, I don't know. Exclusive. That's probably the one I want. Hang on, I gotta cross the street. I'm in a couple of the more exclusive ones. And, but I don't really use them. I don't participate much. So I'm basically like a new holder. I think even though I've been in them, some of them since pretty much the damn beginning, I'm curious when you have. So I'm doing this journaling. I'm doing this state copy pod, and I'm getting out here and I'm recording my thought, and I found this, as I've said in past captures, super valuable just for myself. But every once in a while I say something that I think would be, I don't know, useful kind of for others. And the problem is there's no way to amplify the one of the crazy side effects of giving everyone a voice and creating the super rich bandwidth between us is it's just so noisy. There's no way to sort of put your hand up to the world and say, well, this is probably worth listening to. So even though I think a lot of this content, though it's created pretty selfishly, could be useful for others, I don't have a way to promote it, and I don't want to spend any energy on that. So I thought what I'd try is I set up a tweet for my Ep 23 I put out, I guess Friday, I think it was, and it's where I riffed for like 40 minutes on some Solana thesis stuff and some NFT thesis. And I thought, I saw Farzad from Fardazy, I can't remember what his Twitter handle is, but Farzad, with the guy with the Tesla channel. I was watching him, he put a clip out that said, for anybody holding Tesla stock who's nervous, check this out, basically. And I thought, that's really a healthy thing, that communities of sort of like early investors and strong supporters of emergent tech, like when folks that are playing the VC casino want to sort of prop each other up, and like when you're in the global pullback in the liquidity cycle, and everything is just getting wrecked. I mean, it's rough times out there. I don't care if you're in crypto or, well, especially if you're in growth, because growth gets hit first and hardest. We're in the long swing sideways until the M2 factory gets turned back on. And I just mean the denominator. Everything's denominated in the US dollar. Until that gets turned back on, we wait. And anybody who borrowed against what they had gets shaken out. Anybody who's new, I actually described this recently in a Discord with that one I've referenced a few times in here, where I just described there's basically like 5 buckets for people in crypto. You got bucket 1. Let's see if I can remember this right, which is you know what? I will pause here and find it. That's a better approach. All right, I found it. So, here's what I said. People in crypto can be divided into a few categories. 1, been here long enough to understand the inevitability of it all and its cyclicality in boom-bust relative M2 money supply. 2, the sophisticated gamblers that don't care what it is, but are expert in trading the high volatility. 3, the gamblers that are completely ignorant about what it is and don't have any understanding of how to trade the vol. 4, hodlers, people that did all the homework to invest and got married to their thesis and ignored the cyclicality of it relative to Dixie. 5, the 5th bucket, can't handle the vol, get super emotional, and 5, can't handle the vol, gets super emotional about the deleveraging and retrace, buys the FOMO top, and then capitulates at the macro bottom and swears it's a scam and everyone involved is either stupid or bad. And then I said 3 usually leads to 5, 4 gets stuck at 4 or moves to 1 or 5. And then friend A said the delusional dreamers who hit the bong too much. I think that was a jab at me. I responded, nah, I just bucket them with 3. 2 usually stays 2. 1 and 4 is caused by 6. Let's see. Oh no, sorry. I was going to say, I wouldn't say that. So friend A responds, right after I said 2 usually stays 2. He says 1 and 4 is caused by 6. I said, does it? Wink. Or is it, I should say? He says, you tell me. I say, can't predict. Can't. Precise future is unknowable. But I get you my best forecast all the time. I give you my best. So, don't know how coherent that all was. But I think it's true. I think you can really divide up everybody here in the space in sort of that way. And now I can't recall how I got on that tangent. Still on a THC fast, though. I started just describing what I think, a little experiment I just took in sharing content from this exercise. I've already been sharing it publicly, but with 0 subscribers and zero views, I'm really here talking to myself. And I thought, well, there may be some value in sharing. And so I use some of these Discord groups where I have gated access for holding an NFT. And I posted a tweet I did that linked to that video on Solana and state of markets in general. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see whether gated, just simply having access to these NFT communities garners any, I don't want to say attention or recognition. It's more just like, if you can use those as a signal to have somebody hear you out. I think it's a pretty huge investment of time. Most people, I mean, I found really great clips that condense a lot of really important information to just an hour or even just 20 minutes. And I found everyone is so distracted by, I don't know, either the political nonsense or the pandemic nonsense or all our silly little squabbles, or just only on a dopamine fest with Facebook and TikTok and all that. I think it's so hard, even if you take the time to explain why somebody should take something seriously and invest 10 minutes or 20 minutes in hearing, in trying to absorb a useful distillation of useful information. I can't. I don't get anywhere with friends I've had for more than 20 years. They immediately will shit on it, point at all the ways the information is corrupt, and they should ignore it without even listening to 30 seconds of it. So, in that echo chamber that everyone is sitting in, I'm not super bullish the ability to get to break through that barrier. But it's fun to try in little ways, like this experiment I just made today. I suspect that having gated access to these communities is not enough. I think you actually have to participate quite a bit. You got to go in and say GM with all the NFTers every day and comment back and forth. There's kind of a cynical side of all of that I see, is that I think NFT communities, for all of the magic promised of forming tangible, real community, there's this kind of, because it's all built around a influence, hype, and monetary, because of that piece of it, I think that's the most significant piece of a lot of these communities. So I don't want to say waste a lot of time, but I don't find it valuable to participate a lot, because there's this this feeling I can't shake that I should say this is normal for humans just socially, even before all this tech. If you joined a club, even if it was a pretty exclusive club, nobody in the club would take you seriously until you establish some level of credibility you got super engaged. And so people who think, oh, I can just go buy this $10,000 JPEG and suddenly people will listen to what I have to say and I'll be welcomed, that's not really true. That'll get you to step one, where the doors open up and you can now participate in a conversation. And that's really powerful, but it's really just one first step in a really multi-step process where there's this you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours when nobody's listening to you, where you have no followers on Twitter, you have no followers when you say something and nobody votes it up or down. It just basically gets ignored in a Discord channel. That is a hard, long process. I'm watching this guy in one of the communities I'm in. I'm watching this guy who's got this really, we'll call it unique approach to building, like making that noise. Like he's kind of doing it through hostility. I'm not going to name names here. It's an interesting social experiment. And he's kind of going out and attacking another project and then making up in public. And he's doing it. I think it's genius. I think it's clearly working. I think he quadrupled his follower count. And then that's kind of everything in this game. That's what the influencer is doing, good or bad, or quality of signal, is completely like the most important part of the whole thing is just like growing the number of eyes and ears that will listen to what you have to say. And so even though state copies matured to a point where I feel comfortable sharing it, at least in an anonymous way on the internet, I'm really not going to spend any time promoting this, like I said, or, I'll do little things, little experiments here and there. I'm wondering if you can grow a thing organically, just because you somehow get the attention of people who will just hear somebody out and not look for the TLDR, not look for the community I'm trying to build through this. If I'm going to build one, and if there is going to be a network software, what do I want to say here? If this is going to be more than just an exercise for self, the network that I envision around that would be the people that kind of think like me, that think all of true understanding is in rich understanding of nuance, and spending a lot of time trying to view a thing from every angle you can and through everyone else's eyes and perspective, and is willing to do that work, is willing to just plop down on their couch or put in some earbuds on a walk and hear somebody start to finish and enjoy that experience. So, that's who I think this content would resonate with. So that means I kind of know on the surface of it that a lot of people in like NFT and all of these sort of, it's community, but it feels there's this false component to it. I don't know how you build, and maybe I think, and this is not true for all of them, I think a ton of them get in there, do this, and then they build rich, real community. And because I'm kind of put off by what I think a good margin of it is, I'm not willing to put in that work and that time. So, I mean, here, I'm going to pause here. So I see that in a couple places. Some of the real what's considered like an NFT blue chip channel. I mean, one of them, Proof Collective. That's super exclusive. There's only a few that would be sort of in that caliber in the ETH ecosystem. But I just hold the thing because I feel indebted to Kevin Rose, and I want to support what he's doing. But I don't really participate in that community at all, and I'm not popular there because I have a really contrarian view about Layer 1 that's ETH bag holders tend to just despise. So, I dropped a link to this tweet, and I just thought, hey, this is a way for me to give back. Here's my just authentic take on a big event big negative event of the bear cycle that just went down. And I thought, if anybody there wants to take that seriously, but I've never participated. And even though that's a super exclusive group, I doubt that one person clicks the link there. So, but I do get a sense when I'm in there that there's real community. There's people that show up there every day, and they're forming like family, which is really neat to see. And so I think it's possible, but it takes a long time and a lot of work. And so, I don't know. I think I wanted to just riff on that a little bit, the dynamics of it, and for people who are trying to understand from the outside in what you get and what's the use case for these gated NFT communities. I think it's important to go in with that understanding that you don't buy a floor in some project and you suddenly have a family that will listen to what you have to say. Mostly you'll be totally ignored unless you log in there every day. You participate in a productive way, just like any other club. And choose wisely and don't be fickle. If you're just a kind of the cynical flipper that doesn't really buy the collector's thesis of NFT, you really just see it as an opportunity to extract US dollar value that's accrued around somebody that you think is naive, or that someone you think is naive and are in like sort of a cynical way, because a good part of NFT community is those people. They just see it as sort of a grift that they can, they're traders. They're kind of in that number 2 bucket that I described earlier, where they're just sophisticated traders that see a thing that's super volatile, that has this kind of social component that maybe a stock doesn't have, they can use to trade in a sophisticated way. And they really eat up a lot of the airwaves in these Discord channels and these little communities, because what they're doing is they're just trying to pump and dump and all these negative things that NFT communities have a stigma. That stigma is real. It's there, and it's the number 2 bucket participants, where so but you will find that 5 or 15% of like diehard collectors, supporters of the founding team, and you'll find a founding team I think that's like, I think that's what you'll find in what's called an NFT blue chip. And I think if you want to try and invest that social experiment, some of this context might be useful. Buying the thing is only step one. You got to get in and you got to work. If you're going to work as category... All right, I got cut off again. Still working on an alternate audio capture device. I think where I left off, I lost about 5 minutes. I was describing the dynamics of NFT community, and I was describing the sophisticated traders that don't really buy the collector's thesis or the integrating PFP into personal brand in the metaverse, or the value of gated community that can work as a hive mind in investing. So I really want to flesh that point out, because a good deal of all the participants in these communities, once you get there, are those people. And I don't really look at them as, well, I don't really look at anything through a negative lens anymore. So the positive that I'll describe in that is it's necessary friction for real community to form and to get a flywheel going for itself. So I actually really buy the NFT gated community thesis, specifically for PFP and integrating personal brand in the metaverse into, like, integrating one of these communities into your own personal brand. I think there is going to be, I think it's a social experiment that is, Web3 native, that I'm pretty sure is going to work, but it's all very experimental right now. And so it's important to understand all the dynamics at work. And like I said, I don't really look down my nose at people who are in that bucket I just described, that are kind of there to make a buck. And the universe created incentives for them to be there. And if a project in community is strong enough to overcome that friction, it will be a powerful thing. The trick is trying to find one of those and then actually participating in it, giving back to it, supporting others, establishing credibility for your own signal within that community. And then I think it can be a powerful thing that works for you. And you can pick one for the art if that's a thing for you. For me, it's never really been about that. For me, it's really around this technology and the social experiment of it, and NFT community. The whole experiment emerged right as the flywheel got spinning, and it had a lot to do with getting the flywheel spinning on the layer one that I think is going to win layer one. And so, I was kind of there start to finish. The brand I integrated with myself in the metaverse, like my Twitter picture is a pixelated cartoon monkey. And it's love it or leave it. That's what I got, and I'm happy with it. I, as somebody who is here since about the beginning as you can be, of, the day the mainnet went live and all that, and the genesis of NFT. It was my first NFT mint was Solana Monkey Business, SMB. And it was kind of like, great. I wonder what this is. There were people that instantly got it way better than I did, and they minted, 30 or 40 of them. I wish I'd done that. But I just minted 2 of them. One of them's pretty damn rare, as we currently evaluate these things. And I'll keep it forever. I'll keep basically, I'll keep a few floors on hand so I can turn them over for profit at some point. But most of it I'll just keep forever. And I really, as I understand what this is, I think it's really important that you not be fickle with these communities. I think when you put the time in, and when people who are not the cynical traders that are tearing the project down, they are the family, the real hive mind that's building in those communities. When you're seen as just that long-term holder that's been there since the beginning, or when you got there you weren't fickle about it, you didn't spend a lot of time doing the pump and dump cynical trader game, you established yourself as just somebody who loves the project, is there forever, and wants to be a force for good, to prop it up, not tear it down. So you kind of got to find that for you. Now, whether it's the one I chose or some other one, that's, completely subjective decision. Try and look at it from all these angles. Dip a toe in once you get into the gated access and you can start participating in the community. Pay attention to the dynamics. Maybe look at the signals. Try and look at the sophistication of the people that are there, and see if they're the people that do your best to try and sort of compare and contrast the signals that you hear participating in that community, and then grade them over time. And if you see that you've found a community that has the momentum and kind of the heart to overcome all of the friction and all the it's not just of the cynical traders and the people that are just trying to make money on the volatility of what they perceive as a grift. If once you feel like you've got that one, really make it your brand and stick with it. That's how it becomes useful for you. That's how you're going to get to actually get the benefit of the hive mind. That's how you're going to get that's how you'll identify a project that's value will go up over time. And if you do choose to sell off a position in it, you'll probably do very well. Form kind of a bond, a connection with the thing, and that's how it will serve you. So you kind of got, there's a few ways to play NFT, and I think those are the long game is that one I just described, and the short game, if you want to make money quick, you have to join that sort of cynical trader, buy the floor of one project, pump it, and then dump it, buy another floor, shit all over it, try and that's an important point that I think I lost when this capture died the first time. It's very easy for somebody who wants to make the community fail because they view it as a zero-sum game. It's very easy for them to just go buy a floor in one of these projects. The gates to these kingdoms are not, for anybody in crypto, are not very difficult to overcome, that sort of first barrier. And then they can get in there and they can be real assholes Because, and even if they don't even mean to be, like, they can just be laughing on the other side of the keyboard. You don't know. And a lot of them, there are a lot of legitimate incentives for around that behavior, so it's always going to be there. And you have to be very agnostic to that behavior. You have to see that it's really just somebody has an economic incentive to behave that way in that community, and it's not a reflection of the whole community. The meaningful part, the one that's going to build a thing that's useful, that there's value in becoming a part of. And every single one of them has that dynamic. It's a necessary friction, and if you can grok that, you'll be okay. Another really important thing to call out that I've noticed that just popped into my head with NFT is when you buy this, I've already established that it's not going to immediately give you a huge following of family that will take you seriously. You got to work for it hard. The utility. I mean, when you're not really buying a JPEG. The JPEG's free. That's NFT 101. What I'll tell you is right-click save is not what this is about. Everybody can have the art. It's freely available on the internet. You can own the hash that says you're the authentic owner of it. So really what you're buying is a hash. The art has nothing to do with it. Find art you like. Find one that you think will be fun to integrate into your, personality in the metaverse. But largely it doesn't matter. What you're buying is the private key for that thing. You're buying the person exclusive rights. Potentially, some of these, there will be really cool branding opportunities. There will be neat ways you can make a product in the real world or in the metaverse and package it and label it with your, and make it part of your brand for resale. I think a lot of these projects, like what Yuga's doing with BAYC and I guess eventually Punks, maybe. I don't know how that works. There is a real utility, and there are another thing that's happening is people are building projects like DeFi infrastructure that's going to be really important, and then they release an NFT that lets you the NFT almost acts like stock, and then they integrate they integrate some sort of financial reward for holding over time, and there's all these experiments going on around that, but it's so new. Even if you find one that has a good utility, it's always fleeting. What I've seen since I've been here is it's going to take a long time to figure out like that experiment and the different ways that it's being tested, like NFT utility. I think they're right and it's real, but it's too new. There's not going to be, even if you're making a ton of money with whatever the thing the one you bought into is trying, it's going to be fleeting because it's subject to the same outside forces as global macro. When the money printer stops, and as a species we decide to go risk off, and the banks and governments all say, no more lending, you guys have gone too far, all of that money will dry up, and those passive revenue streams that you thought were there will disappear overnight. That doesn't mean it's not temporary. They may come back. So you can chase that utility, but you have to know that yields on this hash you're buying are at best temporary, and long-term sustainability is completely unknowable. So I think my feeling on it is once the market figures out the right model for building real sustainable utility and ways to deploy brand recognition by buying into one of these projects, once that gets established through all of this experimentation, it will just be all of the successful blue chips that have real community, real family, will just adopt them. That's the same model that works. That's how capitalism works. They'll integrate it, and then that yield will come later. But the right lens to view it through is, right now, this is all a sandbox. It's very experimental. When you buy a thing, don't expect it to just start paying you a real, meaningful monthly salary and it never be at risk for the rest of your life. There's a good chance, especially in bear markets, it won't make anything for you. And you're going to look at it and you're going to go, holy shit, I could have just right-click saved. You are taking a huge risk if you enter that market and try to play that game without this education prior. You really should spend a lot of time trying to understand what NFT is. Like, look at the nuts and bolts, look at the gears of what this experiment is. And that will allow you to hang on in the down times and maybe have a shot at holding something that will win long term. And if you are loyal to it in that way and you participate in its community, you'll have credibility in the hive mind that you bought access to. So that's what I think about that. Big long riff on NFT. What else could I talk about today? Yesterday's capture, I talked about, it was more sort of theory of everything, fundamentals of sort of properly integrating. Hang on, I gotta cross the damn street. So, okay, so yesterday I spent a bunch of time sort of digging into how our network, I looked at from first principles, the value. Morning. Hey, pup. From first principles, the intangible value that most of us haven't considered in our relationships with other humans, and how important it is for everything that we are, and the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities that creates in all of us, because it's so vital to who and what we are. To expand on that a little further, so an experiment I've been spending a lot of time, I'm kind of ramping up for going back to work, and the place I'm spending most of my time sort of gearing back up for being I don't really want to be a manager again, I think I want to go back to being an individual contributor. And that means I need to get my skills are a bit rusty, and I need to get myself, force myself to do a bunch of experimentation with something that requires me to use, a Linux terminal, and think in that. I got to wake up that part of my mind again, and so my process for doing that is usually I find an emergent thing that looks like magic that I want to understand better, and I go try and teach myself how it works, and I play with it. Right now, that's totally AI. So I'm looking hard and experimenting with Stable Diffusion, and before that, DALL-E 2 and GPT Chat and OpenAI Whisper. I'm really just playing with all these things. I'm spinning up services on Mac and Windows environment that I can use. I'm playing with the APIs, and what I did with OpenAI Whisper, what I'm trying to do is kind of merge these all together. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Yeah, good. I'm trying to experiment with all of them, but then use them together in some meaningful way. And hi, good morning. For example, I thought, my girlfriend is born and raised in China, and she immigrated here, full-time several years back, and her so when she really became a citizen and a full-time resident, it's still new enough, and she was late enough in life, and the difference between Mandarin Chinese and English is so substantial. When I try at all to do tonal language, I completely fail. So we're completely dependent on her understanding of English. And I've built kind of a subconscious understanding of what her vocabulary limitations are. And then when it's just her and I shift into speaking into just words I know she knows. And it allows us to have a pretty healthy, deep relationship. But in a lot of ways, even after 3 years, we're kind of strangers. And then, there's this fun game I have where she really loves Western television and movies, and we actually have kind of similar taste in movies. So I can, I can go back in my memory banks and remember some movie I thought was really good that I know she'll enjoy, and then I go on the subtitles hunt to try and find subtitles at work so that she can watch them. And so OpenAI Whisper really got my attention, because if I can, on the edge, spin up a service locally that I can, and maybe I can build some sort of processes around that integrate with, the media browser I use and everything to, just kind of, what I'd like to do is just flag a movie that I think she'll enjoy, and then have it spin out Chinese subtitles. Now, OpenAI Whisper will translate a stack of really, a ton of languages into English, but it won't translate English into any of those languages. So it's a two-step process. First, I have to do a transcription of the movie into English, or I have to find one that exists that's pretty solid, and the timestamps. This is another problem if you're in this if if you are in a relationship like I have, where the subtitle demand is real, challenge, that's what I want to say, the subtitle challenge. Even if you find subs for a movie that you want, it's very likely that it'll be like the extended cut version, and you won't have the extended cut, or vice versa, or the timestamps are just totally wrong. So when you play it, all the words won't make sense. They'll all be out of sync. So I find about 50-60% of movies you can get subtitles for in a really sort of automagic way that's not too much of a hassle, right through the UI, through Plex. But you, a lot of them, there'll be this problem with. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to set up something where I can just flag a movie and it will automatically go out, transcribe it using like maybe the base or medium model of OpenAI Whisper. And then once I have the English SRT, it will, then I need to run that through Google Translate. So this is a really fun project for me, and I think at the end of it, I'll have something that's super useful to me. It'll get my software chops back up to where they need to be for me to go back to work as an individual contributor. And it'll give me exposure to a lot of technology that I think is important and emergent right now. And it gives me a good story to tell in the interview process about how I go about this. And, you know, I would recommend this to young software engineers in your career. This is a good best practice for if you take time off, how to get back into it. You have to find something that you're passionate, curious about, and that will be personally useful, because that'll give you all the fuel you need to actually educate yourself on how it works and build it and deploy it. And then when you're done, you have all that experience and you've got something to talk about in an interview with a hiring manager. So one cool thing in playing with this is I realized, you know, I could transcribe these audio captures, because she doesn't know what the hell I've been doing. Going out there and talking to myself, you know, every day. And it's cool that it occurred to me that I can use this to create transcriptions. And so I gave her 1, 2, 3.
Oh boy, what a bummer. I just lost about a half mile of pretty good content through this audio capture bug I've got right now. I think I just figured it out. I think it's when I have my earbuds with me. My earbuds are somehow, even if this time I actually had one in my ear, and I think that I'm somehow interacting with the sensor on it that detects, or it's reestablishing a connection to my phone, and it's breaking this. So I think all I'm going to have to do is just leave the earbuds at home, and I can trust my captures again. That's been a huge distraction lately as I do my daily journaling. I'm going to try and redo that lost half mile, because I think it was a bunch of important stuff. I just re-listened to the last 5-10 minutes, and I think I can pick up where I left off. I described this project that I'm working on right now around transcription, and I was just at the part where I was going to describe that it clicked for me that I could use this transcription project to transcribe the state copy pod and for my girlfriend so she could understand it and kind of understand what I'm doing. And I went ahead and did episodes 0, 1, 2, 3, and 5. I felt like 0 through 3 are really important to understand, just kind of like core principles of what this is that I'm trying to do. And 4 is kind of super messy, and it's kind of experimentation with I was doing around the structure of this that informs kind of how I came around. I think it's important for understanding the path my subconscious took me in to getting to this very valuable routine and discipline that I'm forming around journaling with audio. And I think episode 5 was really interesting for her because if you've listened to episode 5, it's my attempt at describing a pretty intense psychedelic experience with psilocybin. And I find so a really useful tool I use to integrate the psychedelic experience and is that I used State Copy Pod as a way in trying to explain an indescribable through English language experience. I'm trying to frame it for somebody who's only ever really understood the stigma around psychedelics but is curious enough to try and hear out somebody who tries to really rationally explain what it is and how it works. Episode 5 is after I slept on it about, so it's like 12 or so hours after I came out of that experience. And I think I do a pretty effective, coherent description of that experience. And she was really curious about it. And I think she was an important part of how I dealt with what could have potentially been sort of a bad trip towards the end. And I think, so she was really curious about it. And so when I transcribed it, it was, I can't remember, like 15, 16 pages of pure text in whatever font I used. So there was a lot of content. It took her about an hour, 2 hours to get through it all. But she was very interested because she's in a relationship with this man that, when you're in a relationship where there's a language barrier, in a lot of ways, I think you have a connection that's more fundamental and pure and really, like I would recommend this experience, but it's very challenging at the same time because while you have a connection that's maybe fundamentally has more depth to it than I think a lot of people have, or that I have had in past relationships, I'll say, because you're kind of forced into that because of the language barrier. But it means there's a huge, in a real way, even after, we've known each other for more than 3 years, we're totally strangers to each other. So it's very, I think she was kind of riveted. And so far, this entire exercise has been really for myself. There's no subscribers or listeners, and I'm kind of intentionally not sharing it with anybody in my life. But it was interesting to let somebody listen to it that I'm in a relationship with. And I was kind of curious, like how she'd take it. She was I think she really kind of got what I was doing and was kind of moved by that episode 5. And that translated to a sort of just a short sort of conversation on spirituality. Now, she is a spiritual person. She attended church, sort of deeply religious when I met her. And now, if she is, or is she still getting that, she kind of hides it from me, because I think of that massive incompatibility between the atheist, agnostic, sort of deeply analytical mind and the person of faith, the spiritual person. And that brings up a really important thing that I want to riff on for a while. And I wish I had not just lost, so I will try again. That dynamic, now that I've reached this sort of level of maturity in thought and kind of what I think is wisdom on kind of what the universe is, and I've unlocked an understanding of myself through this exercise and a study of Roman Stoicism and the other classics to compare and contrast. I've built a framework that unlocks a lot of understanding into the benefits, the real benefits that are that people of faith and religious people get, that is not available for atheist, agnostics, or just purely sort of scientific, analytical thinkers. And I want to describe that in a way that makes sense for others that are curious about it. And so, in a real way, people, the way, what religion does, if you think from first principles, and I'll try and do it in a more neutral, accessible way than I usually do, where I use a software engineer's framework of understanding. But if you do just think, if you really look at scientifically what a religion is it's a shared narrative. It's a shared understanding of a story that explains what the universe is, what a human being is, what its purpose is, what happens when they die, and who made them, and sort of what it's all for, right? So I really think that it's, I don't mean this as an attack in any way or disrespectful to any of the religions out there when I say this, but I really want to try and build a bridge between two very incompatible ways of thinking. So if the atheists, agnostics, and the deeply faithful can just be open-minded for a minute and hear a guy out, I'm going to try and explain both perspectives that I think I now understand better. And it means that I'm going to put some things out there that will be sort of triggers for both camps. And what I'd ask is that you just sort of hear me out start to finish and think about what this means and try and explore how this way of framing it can be sort of a bridge for each other. The person of faith, at the core of faith, the reason it's called faith is you're basically buying it. If you just strip away all of what the atheist, agnostic, scientific-minded, analytical thinker would call woo-woo, and you just look at it sort of from a fundamentals approach, faith is not a magic thing. It's just basically a human mind accepting a story and subscribing to it in a meaningful way that is not a lie to self. So I think a lot of atheist agnostics, the other camp, the Vulcan camp, I'm going to call it from here on out so I don't have to say all that mouthful. The Vulcan camp is incompatible with that way of thinking. They are not what they perceive, they're almost allergic to it, right? Because so much of the core of how their model works and how their mind works is test a theory, prove it, and then integrate it, right? And you can't test a story, right? You can, and also a real problem, and I've talked about this in past captures, with modern understanding of the universe is the old software we used for establishing and propagating religion through, a story that has, anecdotes about, events that happen that teach lessons, and the problem is a lot of those stories are no longer very compatible with our understanding of the universe. So, and they sound like a lot of hocus pocus, and the way society works and culture works sort of globally now, all of the old religions, and the reason you just see the steady decline in participation is because they're not, the narrative that faith is based on is no longer very compatible with our understanding of the universe. And so the Vulcans tend to look down their noses at the religious people because they feel like they're part of a sort of a mass hypnosis, voluntary mind control that all these people have subscribed to, and they tend to judge these people. And I was guilty of this myself when I was young. I did it with my own mother, who I loved and cared about, but I watched her as a Methodist Christian buying into something that was totally incompatible with how my mind worked, and I perceived her as naive, as being the victim of a sort of like a thought crime, a willing hostage of a con. That's really, like, from the time I was 9 years old, how I viewed one of the most important people in my life. And what that translated to as I got older is, in my 20s, I was very sort of hostile in my views about faith and religion, because it was so deeply incompatible with how my mind works. That core principle of faith, where I just had to buy into it, was completely incompatible and therefore inaccessible to me. And so then I very much latched on to all of the negative things that come from religion, and I used it as proof to sort of prop up my thinking around it. And I see that in others that think that way. And I think I understand, I think that we're all suffering in that camp from that problem. It's just an incompatibility with the story. And we need, because of that incompatibility, it's not, we will never be able to buy it. We can't ever subscribe to the faith that a religious person can have. Now, this means we're all suffering in a real way. we tell ourselves in that sort of dialogue with self. We comfort ourselves. We try and tell ourselves, well, we're strong enough, or we're smart. We're so smart and so smart. So strong and resilient that we don't need. At least this is something that I know I was guilty of. The way I dealt with that internally is I prop myself up with this narrative that I'm so strong as an individual that I don't need that. Like, I can have a meaningful life and purpose without needing to have an explanation for what this is for, who made me, God, all of it, right? I was very much willing to, and I kind of found purpose and meaning through that resilience, right? I think that is a powerful tool, and I think atheists, agnostics who are successful at escaping depression through having that sort of gaping hole in their understanding, that is, I think, where a lot of them and myself found footing. And that's something a religious person can't understand. They see the Vulcans as these sort of lost children that are confused and that are maybe amoral, because a lot of their moral footing is in their faith. And they can't understand how an atheist or an agnostic can build a moral framework and find meaning in their lives, because it's just, like I said, from first principles, at a foundational level of how their model works, they couldn't handle that gaping hole, and it's a very different type of evolution and thought, right? From the time you're an infant, the path they're on, it's just totally incompatible, right? But now that I can kind of see what they're doing and how it works, and I can see what we're doing and how it works, I can abstract some useful conclusions and observations from, now that I've built a framework, I think, for understanding the universe and my purpose in it that is compatible with my Vulcan mind, my deeply logical, analytical way of thinking. I now have peace in my heart and in my my everyday, and I have a connection with all other humans that is not a lie. It's very, like, at my base level, I believe it. And so now I've unlocked what I think is a spiritual framework for the analytical, logical, sort of atheist mind. And I can tell you, it creates a level of peace, acceptance, harmony in life that was not available before. And so undoubtedly worth pursuing. And I hope in me making this public, I can sort of propagate that path and show all the breadcrumbs to how I got there as a Vulcan, just like you might be. I think that describes it well. I hope that's coherent. And I'll probably explore this further because I think it's the right way to, as I said, build a framework of understanding and draw all the breadcrumbs from start to conclusion that bridges that gap and gives that sense of community and meaning and purpose and peace to people that, because it's not their fault. What the religious and the people of faith need to understand is it's not any of their fault. It's just a deep incompatibility with their mind state. And what I'm hoping is once we're all here, I think a really, really fundamental takeaway of this entire exercise is the bridge of understanding. It's not only am I trying to give spirituality, give a path to it and make a case for it for people that don't have that. I'm also trying to build a bridge between everyone that lets us understand each other better. And very importantly, not judge each other. So much of our conflict in our species derives from incompatible mind state around spirituality. If you look at history, is just full of conflicts between in religious conflict, and this very difficult process of aligning our views on this one very important part of our individual consciousnesses. Now, if we can not focus on each other's path or breadcrumbs and forgive each other for which ones we use and not judge, like I said, just if we can just accept that there's a place where we can all meet in the middle, where we say, you know what, I respect your path to understanding, and please respect my path to understanding. And in the middle, we can all coalesce around this idea of we're all the same thing. That's important. Let's build a community around that and forgive each other and respect each other's journey to that point in the middle where we can all collect in a way where we get there. We don't really care about the journey where from the outside of the circle to the center. All we care about is that in the center, we have a mutual understanding that we're all kind of the same thing. And there's value in us aligning our polarity of thought and our sort of shared values around valuing each other and what we are as a collective and what we can do as that collective. And I think that gives a way for us all to, it's an unlock. It's a way for us all to sort of frame even the deeply religious or faithful people that are that find a path to that through the old narratives of religion and faith. That's great. It's beautiful. I'm glad they have that. It wasn't available for me, but if we can meet in the middle and all just find in a place of deep peace where we have all that meaning and purpose and and we can come together as a collective there and forgive. Like I said, I'm going over and over this because I'm working it out in my mind how it works as I talk. I think that is how the human collective consciousness can form and evolve past the very necessary tribal aspects of our nature, and I'm going to spend a lot of these captures on just exploring that idea, and trying to iterate on ways to explain it that make it accessible for the entire perimeter of the circle. I'll end there.